join thousands of NFT traders who already start their day on CryptoSlam.
Metaverse. It's the hottest topic in crypto, with Microsoft becoming the latest tech giant to dive in. Will 2022 be the year play to earn goes mainstream?
The leading one currently in the space is Axie Infinity. It became such a big phenomenon that like half the population of certain country is actually playing it, and like the currency is widely accepted now into even paying for taxis, etc.
Coming up on Word on the Block, Sebastien Borget, co-founder and COO of the decentralized gaming giant, the Sandbox, joins us to dive deep into those topics and a whole lot more. In 2012, a full decade ago, an idea was born of a world to create that would exist in what we now know as the Metaverse. Well, today, the Sandbox is one of the biggest blockchain-based decentralized Metaverse companies in the world. The real estate numbers are eye-watering. A plot sale of a virtual land in the Sandbox in November of 2021 went for $4.3 million. Snoop Dogg has a virtual mansion there. Presumably his pal Martha Stewart might be paying a visit, and brands are flooding in. So what's the play in the Metaverse? Is GameFi the next stage of growth for blockchain and crypto? And does the future of gaming also portend the future economy? Welcome to Word on the Block, the series that takes a deeper dive into blockchain and all the emerging technologies that shape our world at the intersection of business, politics, and economy. And it's what we cover right here on Forkast News. I'm Forkast Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. And today, I'm so excited to welcome in conversation with Sebastien Borget. He's co-founder and COO of the decentralized gaming giant, the Sandbox. And here he is right now, folks. Sebastien, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Angie. What an introduction. Wow.
Well, you know what? I envision a day where we're going to be doing this in the Forkast studio in the Metaverse. Maybe it's going to be in the Sandbox, possibly. Maybe it's going to be our avatars talking to each other, and then our avatar audience is joining us from around the world. But you know, now so many more of us are thinking about the possibilities. But back in 2012, what was it for you that triggered, this moment, this is the time to start building?
Right. I'll definitely see our conversation in the Metaverse with the audience slide. In 2012, we had decided to use new technology to create new form of entertainment. By then, it was smartphones, that new technology that came, and touch screens. So we thought like, wow, if we can just turn players into creators, let them make a lot of cool stuff, their own games by the touch of their finger, that would be a very strong and cool proposition for them. That was how the idea of the Sandbox was born, allowing players to create 2D pixel game just by touching with their finger. It came on iOS and Android. It generated over 40 million downloads over the lifetime of that game. We had a lot of player-made creation, 70 million. And the company was successful and generating a good revenue from that, leading to its acquisition in 2018 by Animoca Brands. Yet, we felt with my co-founder, Archo Madrid, frustrated by something. Like, we were not able to retain those top creators that were contributing to that content over the lifetime of that game. They were maybe here for months, but never through the whole years and more. There was no way for us to share a part of the revenue, etc., due to the platform limitation. In 2017, I was again dabbling into new technologies, this time with blockchain. We found out CryptoKitty, the first blockchain-based game with virtual cats that you could breed and trade. And we saw the potential immediately to actually combine NFTs as a technology with user-generated content. And then suddenly any creator could make content and sell that content somewhere else and monetize it fully. We worked on that idea for over 3 years, 4 years almost today. And today, we're proud to have more than 2 million registered wallets and having Sandbox where it is now.
It was really that moment when you thought or you realized that there was another kind of transactional relationship that you could have with your creators in a way that you couldn't back in 2012. And that was crypto, that was blockchain, and that's when you introduced Sand, the cryptocurrency that fuels the Sandbox economy. How did you integrate, economics 101 into building this metaverse, building this creation that allowed people to feel like they could participate in this world for much longer than, just a game, that it was really so much more than that?
It started with NFTs, allowing them to create content with in a very accessible manner with our creation tool, and being able then to own what they create, own the world they contribute to. So from the assets moving into land, owning a piece of the map where they put the content they create, and owning their avatar as their identity. And ultimately, we only introduced the Sand token that participated into the economy, rewarding them that Sand is a utility token that served for like payment, access, governance, and staking. They are like community-driven communities that are supported by token economies, and the incentive behind the network effect behind that tokens provide are incomparable with the traditional system where like usually creators would get a smaller portion, somewhere between 30% to 70% of the values they generate. Here, we gave up literally the power and the revenue by handing it 100% toward users, and we saw the effect of that at scale. Concretely, what happened is like the users, the artists, the creators that became part of our community, they directly reinvested their earning into the platform. I like sometimes to compare Sandbox as a digital nation, where like every actor, every member of the community is like a citizen that also can act on the future of that world and own a piece of it.
And how do you get your revenue?
First of all, of course, we are selling NFTs as primary sale. But once we've sold out those NFTs, so we typically, the number one revenue source currently is lands. Like we've sold for roughly more than $80 million worth of land to date. That represents 70% of the map, leaving 30% of the map remaining for sale until the end of 2022, beginning of 2023. But once we sold out all of that, we still collect 5% royalties on any secondary sale. So by providing utility value to the landowner and driving demand through that and facilitating the exchange between users, we still earn royalties. And the same for user-generated content. When creators make their NFTs, they get 100% of the price they ask as a payment, and this will still get 5% every time those NFT exchange ends, which I think it's one of the most scalable model.
I'm curious how you see this kind of role as, you created this world in which a lot of people want to participate, but now you're custodians of that experience.
So we all the people who own land, and they are their own custodian of their assets. They own it. Like we cannot take them away from them. But what our role is to support creators, artists, players through the foundation. Anytime there is a transaction that comes in Sand, whether the primary sale or the 5% royalties, half of that, 50%, is reinvested into the foundation that then supports artists through the creator fund. Support creator people building the experience, the game, through the Game Maker Fund, support the play-to-earn price. And I believe it's essential to build a world that's going to be living, fun, engaging, culturally rich, to support and promote diversity, to support and promote entrepreneurship, education, women and underrepresented communities in the space.
No, it's exciting stuff. And audience, you got to stay with us, because when we come back, Sebastien, I want you to give us a little bit of a tour of the Sandbox. Who's there? Who are the celebrities? What are the most exciting projects that you're seeing when we come back?
When we return, all the cool people and places you can find on the Sandbox.
The first one include Atari, include Walking Dead, Care Bears, Smurf, Deadmau, and more recently we've been really excited to welcome Snoop Dogg and his mansion and his upcoming virtual concert.
And later, we will delve deeper into the economics of play-to-earn games when Word on the Block returns.
Forkast News is your gateway to all things blockchain, breaking down and breaking through the noise with the people who know it best and why it matters. We go to where the action is, from Asia to the world. Forkast is the most reliable source of intellectual discourse and insight that informs, educates, and bridges the gap between the blockchain industry and the mainstream. The future is being built, and Forkast has it covered. This is Forkast News.
Well, we're back with Sebastien Borget. He is COO and co-founder of the Sandbox. This is one of the biggest blockchain-based metaverses in the metaverse, in the world, in the universe at the moment. And we're super excited that he's here. Sebastien, give us a little bit of a tour. We know about Snoop Dogg's mansion. Or can you give our audience a sense of who's in the Sandbox right now?
Of course. We've worked to bring more than 200 IPs, brand, and celebrity to date. Some of them, the first one include Atari, include Walking Dead, Care Bears, Smurf, Deadmau, and more recently we've been really excited to welcome Snoop Dogg and his mansion and his upcoming virtual concert. Adidas has acquired land in Sandbox, and Warner Music Group has been announced last week, and also pushing toward like very culturally global. We have like IPs from Korea, such as Pororo, local artist and musician. From Hong Kong as well, we announced Megacity in January, featuring Adrian Cheng, Hung Suk Kai, Stefan Fung, just among some of those names that are more known in certain regions. And that's just one part of all the content you will find in Sandbox. We have also like literally 100 of NFT-based communities, including the Bored Ape, the World of Women, the Goethe Gans, Rumble Kongs, etc. So we feel like Sandbox is really a space for like creativity, a space where NFTs can come to life.
Back in January of this year, 2022, Microsoft announced buying Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion to help that company, which one could say is was innovative during its day, a startup in its day, and now a legacy company trying to stay competitive in the metaverse. As an industry leader in this new segment, and really one that defined this space, what does this mean for competing companies building the metaverse? There's a lot of people starting to crowd the space that you helped build and start.
What is exactly the metaverse? Like, is it just a virtual world like we've seen for 25 years ago with Second Life,
Right.
Minecraft, World of Warcraft, Roblox? I think really the difference in the metaverse is like how users with their avatar can actually access a greater variety of experiences, more social, more rich, more immersive, and they have the ability of taking their avatar, which is their identity, their assets, their currency, from one virtual world to many others. And that's actually the real metaverse. Now, the metaverse is a place for entertainment. In my opinion, we're seeing every key actors positioning into virtual concerts, virtual shows. So it starts with gaming, but it's going way beyond. We see that with Fortnite and more. And Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard, it's in a way giving them priority access, securing them the exclusivity to prime entertainment.
Look, this is kind of how Facebook views it as well. How do we kind of answer an existential question that its investors ask of it constantly? How do you view the rebranding of Facebook as Meta in the metaverse space? Is there a battle, do you see, coming between centralized and decentralized metaverses? I mean, what would the difference be for the consumer?
I think I see the rebranding of Facebook as Meta as a very surprising moment. Like the companies that's been affecting the life of up to 3 billion people for the past 10 years, shaped some of our social habits, social connection, and more, suddenly change its name and say, we're entering the metaverse. This is something new. So, wow, people might wonder, like, how is Facebook going to transform our life? What's the future of technology? And then we get a presentation, which I personally found was rather boring. And if you read even more further into the letter from Mark Zuckerberg, you can read, like, there's no notion of, like, changing the core of their business model. Mark even said, like, the metaverse is going to be a place for commerce, for transaction, where brands can sell products. But frankly speaking, do users want that? Do they really want to be sold more product into those virtual world? I think he's been missing the ethos of Web3, which is about, like, more community-driven engagement and other values than just transactional.
Well, I do note that shortly after Facebook announced the Sandbox raised another $93 million in a Series B led by SoftBank. So there you go. That was a nice little push in your Series B. How do you view, as you said, you know, there is this rise, that a battle coming, and you have a very different value proposition about how the metaverse should be used. How are you going to use this war chest? Another $93 million in a Series B. What's the strategy?
I think so definitely the announcement of the Series B being led by SoftBank has been adding even more, like, level of trust and confidence that one of the top funds that's been backing companies like WeWork, Uber, and more that transformed our life profoundly is betting on a Web3 decentralized metaverse rather than on the one proposed by Facebook. We're going to use, and we started to deploy the funds to grow the team, hire more of the top talent in the world to build that vision with us, acquiring game studios and companies as well, onboarding even bigger brands and IPs and celebrity that we started to announce, and of course, promoting this through marketing activities.
There is a chill in the air in crypto and blockchain right now. Do you think there's consolidation in this space that's coming? Rumor mill has it that Facebook potentially looking to acquire. Have you been approached at all? I'm curious about what kind of conversations you might have had, and what you think about potential consolidation and acquisition in this space.
The Nasdaq has shown, like, well, after this pandemic period where all technology values, gaming, etc., has been inflated because investors were betting that everyone will just keep spending their time all the time online. Post-COVID government action made us still go back to almost a normal life in the physical world, which triggered a correction, and blockchain and crypto is still a technological value and hence followed that trend. In terms of consolidation and acquisition of decentralized world by a centralized one, I guess that they might be looking at how do we enter the space, since they are seeing their users potentially going from there. But I can ensure that any rumor about like an acquisition of Facebook of Sandbox is totally fake, and there's been no discussion of such, because we are fundamentally different in what we are trying to achieve. Like from the very beginning, we are aiming to empower creator and to give all the ownership of everything, the world, the land, the assets, the currency, that to the users. So ultimately, one day, 100% of the sand, 100% of the land will be owned by the users. And it would not even mean something to acquire Sandbox. It would mean to acquire all the users. That's just nonsense.
It makes a lot of sense when you think about how you view the future economy. And coming up after this break, let's talk more about that. GameFi. It's a whole new world of opportunity for a lot of people. What are the risks? What are the rewards? When we come back.
On the other side, what makes GameFi such a hot commodity?
Gaming itself is an industry that by itself is combining more than music and cinema together, leading the revenue in the world.
Forkast News is your gateway to all things blockchain, breaking down and breaking through the noise with the people who know it best and why it matters. The future is being built, and Forkast has it covered. This is Forkast News.
Welcome back. It's a pleasure talking to Sebastien Borget, COO and co-founder of the Sandbox. And Sebastien, you know, when it comes to how quickly this space has evolved, 2021, you could say, was dominated by DeFi. Analysts are now referring to this year, 2022, as the year of GameFi. Do you see 2022 as the year of GameFi and the Metaverse? And do you see it all going mainstream?
I think it just makes sense that investors and users are actually understanding that the value of asset is derived from their utility. And as such, like virtual land, game assets, and GameFi, as you mentioned, or play to earn, play and earn typically, is like where the long-term value is going to be made. We've seen DeFi, which is very like finance oriented and using like money Legos bricks to combine and compound product. And we've seen something very simple that's like NFTs in gaming. Like the utility is native, it's related to the gameplay. It has such a broad spectrum of experience that can be offered. Like, and gaming itself is an industry that by itself is combining more than music and cinema together, leading the revenue in the world. So it's a very natural evolution, I believe. And as more and more developers progressively are now seeing, since last year, games and platforms like Sandbox, like NBA Top Shots, like Axie Infinity, like taking off the charts, they are being inspired. So they are already working on the next generation of title that will keep consolidating gaming as the leader in the space of GameFi and play to earn.
There are also, no doubt, a lot of risks. Right? You know, where do you see the risks for the players? You know, it can't all be going up. What goes up must come down. Where is the value actually being created? Who is participating in that value creation? There's
effectively some risk related to that. Like blockchain with fixed supply, scarcity of assets, they are zero-sum games typically. So the initial growth is at the beginning fueled by the community, the foundation fund that will support bringing in the capital that's being distributed toward the first players, the first users that engage to play to earn. But progressively, as this fund will deplete, the other fund has to come from the users themselves and newcomers eventually, or the existing economy in place. if that economy is only concentrated into one game and all the actors gravitate around only that one game, I think it is going to progressively increase the risk. So the way to address it is actually, it's coming from Web3 itself, is to add more utility to existing assets so they can be used on other applications. And we're only at the beginning of those economies. Mm-hmm. I think like the leading one currently in the space is Axie Infinity. Mm-hmm. It became such a big phenomenon that like half the population of certain country is actually playing it, and like the currency is widely accepted now into even paying for taxis, etc. That's just one side of it. I think the interesting side is like, generally speaking, play to earn at the ecosystem level is lifting up nations, countries, and audiences that were traditionally totally left off gaming in free-to-play and in premium to enter that market. A lot of free-to-play games were concentrating on the top 5 markets, which are US, China, Korea, Japan, and Europe. And the rest of the world didn't matter. Like, now, those countries can generate as much revenue. The users can earn as much and be as valuable as the traditional countries. And so it's been growing. It's going to grow the total addressable audience of gamer, which is 2.5 billion gamer right now, and really reshift the balance and the way we view the value of players and where they are based. And I think that's very powerful, something very powerful.
At the end of the day, we're defining a future economy. It's really exciting, but I think a lot of people still scratch their head. What is being produced here? What is the future productivity of the human race? Are we going to play to earn everything? What's the end game? What is the true end game?
I like to think like any action we do, which is essentially like time, should be valued against something. If I'm going to school and I'm actually giving my attention to get some more knowledge, I should potentially be paid, and it could be a learn to earn. It's just one example, but other than that, I do feel like, yes, engagement, loyalty should be rewarded. And that's why brands should consider the metaverse in a different approach than spending on advertising budget to try to target users, to have a small percentage of them that will try to buy a product. Rather than that, let's spend that money into rewarding your true fans, offer them value and in form of NFTs and tokens for their engagement, and create more meaningful experience. The end game is like there is a whole digital world, a whole digital economy, millions of jobs in the metaverse for people who are going to create all that content that goes beyond our imagination. I think we've almost explored everything on Earth. It's boring. There's nothing new to discover. If you're born like me at my age, unless maybe under the ocean or space exploration, but space, like maybe I'll go to the moon, maybe I'll go to Mars, if everything, very little chance. So not so much great things. And humans is a race that's born to explore, born to discover new things.
Yeah. Well, a true explorer in our digital age, Sebastien Borget, I think I've just given you a new title, Manifest Destiny in the Metaverse. And I think you've summed it up quite nicely. The opportunity is only as limitless as our imagination. Very well said. Sebastien, it was such a pleasure having this conversation with you, and I look forward to our next one. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Angie.
That was Sebastien Borget. He is the co-founder and COO of the Sandbox, and it was a great pleasure to welcome him on our show. And thank you, everyone, for watching this latest episode of Word on the Block. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forkast. Until the next time.